Got it.
Okay.
And finally, with 8 minutes late, we're live on Facebook.
Okay.
Welcome everyone, to all the people who might accidentally find this live talk, and mostly to the people who have been watching my lives since I published my first book, that one dedicated to the emotional and psychical health of teachers. And because my guest today is a person living in Italy, I live in Romania, I thought that it would be better to have this live talk in English. How did this show up? Usually I invite in these kind of talks people that I found to be resourceful in terms of guiding us, the teachers, towards finding a way out of our everyday problems that we encounter in schools. Surprisingly, I thought that if the teacher can master his own interior world, then most of his problems should be gone. I was mistaken about that. Before the Easter holiday, there were two incidents that completely shook everyone's opinion about what's going on in schools besides children being educated. We had the incident of the Japanese teacher being stabbed by her own student in a college, in a high school in the capital city, in Bucharest. And then we had videos becoming viral with scenes taking place in an English class, with an English teacher being sexually assaulted by her own students, and of course boys, while the other students were recording this or looking at this as if this was a common show that was going on in that school. These two incidents have greatly influenced me, probably because I chose to watch them from start to end without choosing to watch them with sound on. And I have to admit that I asked the psychologist in me, asked herself, is it possible after watching and reading about these news to go back to school and not to project unconsciously nothing at all on your own students? Is it possible for a student to be exposed to such media and then go to school and not to project anything at all consciously on his own teachers? And this is still I'm still pondering over this. It's in my mind, and I asked for help. I asked for help to my teacher, to my colleagues, Romanian teachers as well. And then I thought, because I found a lot of let's call it victimhood among my group of colleagues, I thought that what if I try to see how this problem of being aggressive, how is it dealt with in other countries? And this is how I sent a message to my guest, and she accepted my invitation, and we decided to call this talk "The Image of the Teacher in Italy," because, as I said, my guest is Italian. Welcome, Mary Avakian.
Thank you, Carmen. Thank you. Let me underline that every time you suggest or propose something, I'm always ready, because I always find your projects, your plans very, very interesting. Thank you for considering me resourceful. I'm not sure I am anymore, because, you know, I've been away from school for 3 years now. but I still have friends who teach. And as a matter of fact, things have changed a lot. Not for better, but for worse. How shall we put it? The two episodes you spoke of, yes, they're quite rare here in Italy, but sometimes they do happen. I remember the year before my retirement, a teacher, an elderly teacher, it was his last year at school, a rather provocative teacher, let's say, to use a euphemism. He used to mistreat his students and so on. He was badly beaten up by a student of his, and we were all shocked, of course. But they are rare cases. The fact is that the image of the teacher as a whole has changed. Mm-hmm. When I started teaching in the late 70s, the teacher had prestige. The teacher was respected by students and by families. I must say that I started my career.
When you say respected, Mary, what do you mean that in the 70s in Italy the teachers were respected?
Well, the image of the teacher was of a person with authority who had a right to have authority, not to be authoritarian, which is quite different, but to have authority over her students, to expect discipline from them and respect, to set rules and things like that, which seemed a very, very normal thing. I mean, that's the way it had to be. And families were with us. Mm-hmm. I mean, if a student got a low mark in any subject, especially in behavior, because we do give marks in behavior, parents would immediately come and try to apologize for their student, for their children. That's it. The word apologize. Okay. As the years went by, something changed. People started seeing the teacher here in Italy as a lazy person who works only 18 hours a week, who is on holiday at least 3 months a year, which of course is not the reality. Apart from our 18 hours of teaching, all teachers know that there's a lot of other submerged work that we do, if and when we work seriously. But people stopped seeing that. They started seeing, having this image of the teachers as a privileged class who got paid for doing little or nothing. This propaganda was accompanied by an attitude by the governments, the various governments. It didn't matter whether it was right-wing or left-wing, who showed no respect for the teaching class. Italian teachers are among the least paid teachers in Europe. Our wages are absolutely among the lowest. We're asked to do things that in the past the secretary offices used to do. We've been burdened with a lot of paperwork, most of which is useless. And we're always given less and less time for our didactics. And this, of course, has influenced both students and families. Can you hear me? Carmen? Can you hear me?
Yes, I'm back. Sorry, my internet
Oh, okay.
was gone, yeah, out of a sudden, but I'm back. So you were saying the last thing that I wrote down was that the teacher became a privileged part of the privileged class, being paid for nothing.
Yes.
Yes.
This is a general commonplace, which many people in Italy believe. But more than the people, I think, who's responsible this image of the teacher is the government. Not one specific government. It doesn't matter whether it's right-wing or left-wing. For the last 30 years, governments have done nothing to improve things in school, in no way. To improve school premises, to improve educational instruments, to improve the image of the teacher. And a vicious cycle has been created by social changes, especially technology, okay, generational changes. Parents today are the children of yesterday. They're not the adolescents of yesterday. They are yesterday's babies. Parents have not grown up enough.
Okay, Mary, just a second. I have to write this down.
Okay.
So you're saying that parents nowadays, they are not adults. They are the babies. They are the children in the relationship.
They are the teenagers.
That's an interesting idea. They are the teenagers.
Yes, they are the teenagers who have no time and no effort to cooperate with teachers in educating their children. Their main interest is, we want no problems. You just keep our children at school, raise them, give them their promotion without giving us any problems, and that's it. I mean, they have no idea of what they're missing and what their children are missing in terms of growth and real education.
I never looked straight into the eye of a parent, seeing this as if the parent is not the adult, a parent being the teenager, and the parent having this attitude of, I make whatever you have to do, but I don't want any problems with the kid. Yeah. Because there is no involvement of making an effort or taking the time to understand what's going on in there. Okay. I understand by how you have described. I understand what happened in Italy in the last, if you started in the 70s, this means in the last 50 years. So it was a change that you have witnessed.
Yes.
You grew alongside with this change.
Yes, of course I did.
How was it for you to witness, to feel it growing?
Well, let me state something. Everything I said does not refer specifically to me or to all teachers, in the sense that I myself feel a bit lucky because I've had more or less well-behaved classes and respectful parents. But at the same time, I've seen alongside other colleagues of mine having great difficulties from this point of view. I've seen teachers being threatened by parents. because of low marks given to their children, or being threatened by parents because a teacher has asked a student to, we have a dress code. I don't know if you have that too. We have a dress code, which is usually respected, but sometimes some students forget they are at school. Micro skirts and jeans that are just, I don't know, pieces of cloth hanging here and there and things like that. And whenever any teacher has called the parents to talk about this, they've met parents who dressed the very same way as their children.
And that's why you're saying that parents have become teenagers.
Yes, but not only for that. I know of many parents, especially in lower classes, middle classes or elementary school, they form their WhatsApp group, the parents. And it seems that all the time they do nothing but gossip about the teachers, criticize them. And I'm not sure this can have a very good influence on their children. If a child hears and sees parents criticizing continuously, blaming continuously the teacher and never his or her child, there's not going to be much education in that sphere. Education in the holistic sense of the word, of course. Is it really very different in Romania?
Well, in Romania, we don't have a dress code. There are schools who, let's say, they used to have a dress code, but after the pandemic years, I haven't seen students in town wearing those uniforms, the color of their uniforms. But instead, we have a lot of laws, procedures, regulations, in which basically you have all lists of behaviors that students shouldn't have in school. Even so, when you step into a school, or if you just sit in front of the school and observe how students get into the school, I would say that I don't know how many of us, even from looking from the outside, can say that those things that are stated in regulations are real. What about in the Italian system, school system? Do you have strict laws and regulations and procedures about how a student should behave when in school?
Well, we used to. There's no doubt about that. And let me specify, when I spoke about dress codes, we've never had uniforms, absolutely not. But just regulation on not being too as though they were at the seaside.
Okay. Indecent.
Yes, indecent. Okay. Now, as far as your question is concerned, regulations, there seem to be more regulations today for teachers than for students. If a teacher gives a student a low mark, he or she has to justify it from every single point of view, writing pages and pages and sentences explaining why, and having to prove that it's not his or her fault, but it's the student's fault. Now, in the past, this this didn't work this way. I mean, if a student did not study or wasn't able to, or, you gave him a low mark and tried to stimulate him and so on, but you were never accused of maybe being having the blame.
Mm.
This is one thing, for example. In the past, if a student even dared to use, a dirty word or anything in class, he could be suspended from lessons for at least 1 day, sometimes 3 days.
Mm-hmm.
If he got into a fight with his companions, he could be suspended for even 5 days. And these things were taken very, very seriously. Today, for what I know, because, this is my 4th year away from school, but I still have friends, colleagues, and so on. All this has gone away. The rules are still there, but they've become
the rules are still there, written on paper.
Written on paper, but the last reform, which was in 2018, and paradoxically, it was and is called the good school, la buona scuola.
La buona scuola, the good school.
The good school.
Yes, in Romania, we have such a program right now, which is called the Educated Romania.
Oh, I see. And when did it come? Is it recent?
Recent, yeah. It's like the rumors about having this program started for some years, but it was only in the last year that they started to write it down and to make it pass through the parliament.
Mm-hmm. I see. No, here it was a real reform, real legislation made by the government, changing a lot of things in the world of school. And most of the things that were changed regarded the freedom, in quotations, of course, of the teacher to educate the student. Teachers lost much of their freedom from that point of view. Anything you decide to do to correct a student has to be justified in all possible and impossible ways, which made teachers become go into a sort of resignation and give up and say, okay, we're not going to punish him. I'm not going to write any notes on the students. I'm not going to lower his marks. And this has made students ever more daring. Fear is not a good thing, but just some fear and respect, like parent, children, student, might be necessary. Just a little, the fear that you may be punished if you do the wrong thing. But if you know that you can do the wrong thing and nobody will punish you, then there's something wrong in the system.
Yes, there is something wrong in the system. But now, after talking to you, I realize that it's not a national system we're talking about here. It's an international one.
Yes, I know.
So the trend of the teacher losing authority is international, and I suspect that it's not only the teacher in this game who is left without authority.
Also the parents, also other forms of authority in any case. Yes, I have friends in different parts of Europe and also the States. I have a sister in London, and she always tells me that this is what's happening in schools also over there. I mean, students are always harder and harder to have some control over them.
So apparently we have similar situations in the Romanian educational system and the Italian one as well, in terms of having procedures and regulations, but without them being applied, because you're saying that teachers have resigned, and meaning they are still doing their job. They haven't given in their notice. But let's say that they're they still come to school, but somehow they have detached from what they're doing.
Yes, of course. And you say they don't leave their jobs, no notice. Well, that's quite an impossible thing to do in Italy, because there's so much inoccupancy, joblessness, that,
like unemployment.
yes, that of course a teacher has to feel lucky for the mere fact that she has the job. I mean,
by the way, if you want to become a teacher in Italy, what are the conditions or the minimum requirements you have to follow?
The minimum requirements are you have to have a university degree, of course. And after the university degree, also here things have changed. It's becoming harder and harder to become a teacher. When it was in my era, okay, after the university degree, there was a state competition, a very difficult one, I'd say.
Once a year?
Once every 2 years.
Once every 2 years, okay.
There was this state competition for those who had just graduated from university and wanted to teach. A very difficult state competition with 2 written exams and then an oral exam. And if you passed the state competition, you would enter a list on the basis of your marks, of course. And as there were vacancies, you would be called to cover that vacancy. Today, it's become even harder because it's not enough to have a university degree. After your university degree, you have to follow a course, mostly paying for these courses, to be specialized as a teacher.
And how long does this last, this program, after graduating university?
So between the first course, the pre-selections to be able to join the second course, because then there's a second course, and then the selection with a state competition, it can go on for over a year and a half, and lots of money.
That the trainee has to pay.
Yes, but the trainee has to pay. Yeah.
And after you go through this year of being preparing to get into the national educational system, do you have to also to apply for this state competition? Is it still going on?
Yes, of course. And then, if you're lucky or if you're very good at the state competitions and you're the top of the list, you probably start teaching immediately. And there's a trial year. The first year is a trial year. And at the end of the year, you have to prepare a report in front of a commission. And then, only then, you become a full-time teacher officially.
Yeah, yeah. I would say that the road is a little bit similar with the one that the teacher has to follow in Romania, meaning that after you graduate, by the way, when I mean graduate, I mean university, which it consists of 3 years, plus the master. In Romania, 3 years, it's the Bologna system, 3 years of university for BA actually, and
Yes.
2 years for the master's degree, which
Mm-hmm.
totals 5 years, and afterwards you can apply for you can enter this competition, the national competition, which is followed if you pass on, actually regardless if you pass the competition or not, as long as you you are in the system, every 2 years or 5 years you'll have an exam, a practical exam, written exam, oral exam, in order um, to mark your development, your professional development. Yeah, and I have gone through all these stages, and it took me 15 years.
Yes, that's a typical Italian story as well for many, many teachers.
Mm-hmm.
At the time when I entered the state school, it didn't take so long. It could take a couple of years between one thing and the other. Now, also the university system in Italy is 3+2, by the way. It used to be 4 years. Now it's 3+2. And you have to do all 5 years to be able to approach the world of school.
Yeah. So it seems as if the teachers' professional development has expanded the requirements for the teacher to be considered part of the system. These requirements have increased, but on the other hand, being the teacher being so focused on checking, ticking all the professional development aims and objectives. On the other side of the wall, we had the loss of authority, going entering your classes and facing the reality.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the two things are inversely proportional. Becoming a teacher has become more and more and more difficult, okay, technically speaking, but gaining the authority that a teacher should have has gone down, and the teacher's image has gone lower and lower and lower.
Has decreased.
Yeah.
Yes. So our CV, the teacher's CV, is never ending. While the image of the image of the teacher keeps shrinking. Yeah. How do you think everything that's happening in school about the teacher's image is influenced by what is happening outside the school? Should we consider the loss of authority only a problem of the educational system, or is it more expanded?
I think it's a general social system. Society has changed irreversibly. In many ways, earlier I said that parents today are like teenagers, and their teenagers are like babies. As far as duties and discipline are concerned. But as far as rights are concerned, it's exactly the opposite. Babies act like teenagers. Teenagers act like adults. They want to have all adults' rights. So there's this discrepancy between rights and duties. This is the social system that it's a social trend, really. Even at the age of 6, 7, 8, children are already full of, I don't know how to put it, pretentious ways of living. They want this and that and that, and parents tend to satisfy them. And no rules. So this discrepancy between rights and duties is what I would call a social malady.
The social malady of the disproportion between rights and duties. Where else can we see this disproportion of rights and duties? Do you think there are other areas of society? Politics?
Yeah. Very simply, I mean, we are their mirror and they are our mirror. I mean, when we see politicians preaching one thing and doing exactly the opposite, asking people for sacrifices, demanding sacrifices from the people, and giving themselves all sorts of privileges. I mean, this is also a discourse of rights and duties. A strong disbalance between the two things. So all the way from top to bottom, this just falls down, of course it does.
Yeah. I noticed that even though this balance, as you call it, between rights and duties is part of every area of society, even so, we have this expectation. We expect that this wouldn't happen in a school. We hope, I think it's our hope that the school, the education is going to save us somehow from this malady, as you call it. And when we talk about issues happening concerning the school life, we are full of indignation, as if this shouldn't happen in school. You might expect it to happen in politics because politicians, they're always like this, but not the school. I think we are the last area to be conquered. The school and the educational area. What do you think?
Well, yes, of course, you are right, because the word itself, education, comprises everything in it. I mean, of how we should live, why we should live that way, how we should behave, why we should behave, what we should know. Everything is there in that word, in education. So that's why we hope, we believe, we are deluded that school can be exempt from this social, I don't know.
Should we keep the word social malady?
Social malady, why not? Of course. But then school is nothing but part of the world, part of the rest of the world. I mean, it cannot become
an island.
An island. Okay, I couldn't find the word. That's it. School can't be an island. School is part of the rest.
Yeah, and it's just a mirror of our everyday, I would say, behaviors, our habits, and our mentalities.
Moreover, let me say this. I hear frequently from my friends and colleagues who are still working that after the pandemics, things have become really worse, in the sense that these young people or children, even children, have been so strongly affected by the pandemics, the lockdown period, and so on, that there's something antisocial in them, in their behaviors. They have no sense of community life, absolutely no sense of, I mean, if you're in your house, if you're at home, you may go around in slippers and pajamas, just, a small example. They live as though they're always in their homes. Their attitudes, the way they sit, the way they move around, the way they do anything. There's no longer any distinction between private family life and public life.
That's very interesting what you're saying, that there's something antisocial in the generation that have gone through the pandemic years, and they have no sense of community, and there is no distinction for them between private and public life. Yeah. I was wondering, how do teachers support each other? What system of support do teachers have to help each other?
I think you need to be lucky. Let me explain that. School is a very crowded world. I mean, if you work in a post office or a bank or whatnot, you may have 10, 15 colleagues, and then clients that come and go. School life is different. The school I used to work in, we were about 120 teachers, plus the extra staff, which was present in some way. So, out of 120 persons, you're almost lucky enough almost always lucky enough to find a support group, to make friends, to exchange ideas with. I myself have been very, very lucky from that point of view. I mean, even today, my best friends and support groups, not just friends, are those I made at school. We're still friends. This evening we have a pizza evening. The retired ones and those who are still working.
So, you do have meetings.
Yes, of course. We meet, we go out. Sometimes we even travel together in very small groups, 3, 4 of us. We take care of our social life, and we are what I called not just friends, but support groups. We listen to each other, we try to help each other. And I'm sure that if I had worked in an office, any office, all this wouldn't have happened.
Maybe these strong connections.
Yes, these strong connections with quite a number of people, not just 1 or 2.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So this is what you found to be effective, having these kind of friendships and support groups. But I'm talking about a system of support that is somehow organized by the system. In case there is legal initiation of a parent against a teacher. How is the teacher supported in your community?
She or he isn't. The teacher has to find a private lawyer and tackle with the matter himself or herself. I've seen this happening, and it's terrible. It really is terrible. No, we don't have any sort of, I know what you mean, but it just doesn't exist. not here.
Neither in Romania.
If you have a good enough headmaster, and now we don't even use the word headmaster, it's gone.
It's oblivious, headmaster.
Yes.
What do you use?
Manager.
Manager.
Yes, the school manager.
No principal, no headmaster.
No.
Manager.
Dirigente, like in a business, like in any business. And that's what they have become. Not by choice, but because they're obliged to. They have to look after the finances. They have to make sure they have more and more students coming to their school. The numbers are important. Otherwise, they lose their post. Teachers lose their teaching post. And this has become another blow for schools, because which school can attract students?
The ones that have maybe an infrastructure that is very well developed, or maybe those that are located in the city center, or maybe the ones that have good results, promotion when they graduate. So maybe they also have exams, and depending on how many of them pass those exams, we have tops of schools, in each city and town. Yes, we have tops of the schools, the best in results, in grades. Is this happening in your country as well?
When schools were schools, it used to happen. Now it's different. It's completely different, because parents and young people choose those schools that promote them most easily. And this has also become a vicious cycle, because if a school wants to gain a lot of students, the teachers have to promote the students even when they don't deserve it.
I understand.
Okay. I mean, they no longer think of the quality of teaching and so on. They say, oh, look, in that school, the students all get very high marks. And there's this sort of competition among schools now.
In order to attract more and more students.
Order to attract more and more students.
Yeah, but what you're describing, Mary, is an illusion of being educated in this system. Because if you as a school, you attract me by offering me in exchange high grades for not so much effort.
Of course, it's an illusion.
Yeah, it's like you are feeding my illusion.
Well, it's what happens in the world of politics. They don't choose the best, the most qualified. I mean, it's all become a system, and school has fallen into that system. I say fallen because it's like the falling of the angel.
I love this metaphor, the falling of the angel.
Yes.
Yeah. While you've been talking, I was taking notes. So these are my notes. Yes. And now I'm going to add this metaphor in red, the falling of the angel, because I consider it to be very illustrative for.
Yes. School should be the angel, the guiding angel, but it's fallen.
Yes. What options do teachers have without the authority? Without having authority, what options are we left with?
What options are we left with? This is the question. In the last years, when I was at school, the very first day with my students, because they were already difficult times, not like now. Now it seems that this situation is completely out of hand, out of control. But my last years at school weren't very easy ones, generally speaking. There was already this system of promoting everyone, trying to bring in more and more students and things like that. So the very first day I would meet a new class, I'd start with, listen now, we're going to sign a contract. I tell my students these very words. They'd look at me strangely, saying, what's she talking about? And then I'd start giving them the rules, saying, in my class, when I speak, you listen. When one of you speaks, I keep quiet and I listen because I respect you. So the first rule is respect. You respect me, you respect each other, and I respect all of you. The second rule is we speak one at a time. The third rule is never use bad words in class, dirty words and things like that. I don't use them because I respect you. Mm-hmm. This is how I would just repeat. And in the end, after my commandments, I don't
This is how you call them, commandments. Okay, so you said we speak one at a time. Then you said no use of bad language, of dirty words. What other rules were there in the list of commandments?
Respecting all the school equipment, especially when we had to go to the language lab, because very often students used to destroy everything. Keeping the classroom clean. I used to explain that our caretakers are not our servants, because even these small things don't seem to be taught at home. So they would eat and throw the paper on the floor and things like that. So I would set these rules, not just for them and for me. And in the end, I'd ask, do you think all this is very difficult to do? And they'd look and say, no, it's not. So I'd say, are you ready to sign this contract? Say, yes, okay, let's sign it. And we would virtually sign me too. And I would make them feel that anything I was asking of them, they would be asking of me in these terms. And believe me, Carmen, it may seem stupid, but it worked. It always worked.
What you're saying, Mary, is that this generation doesn't want the hierarchy to come and throw them the rules, the commandments, and then witness the authority doing whatever they want. Perfect. This generation wants you to get down from that. How is that called? When you are on I don't know how to call this in English, where you put the statue.
Yes.
We're going to find the word, but anyway, we all have a picture right now of that thing that you put the statue on. So this generation wants you, the authority, to get down from that place and sit next to them and be the embodiment.
In a way, yes, but
of those rules.
But there's more to it. It's not just that they want to be on the same level, because this is not possible. Because there must be an authority. As a matter of fact, I'm the one who gives the rules. But I give them to them and to myself. And what's more, it makes them feel involved and responsible. It gives them a
Involved.
feeling of involvement and not just coming and receiving rules. Otherwise, you'll be punished.
Mm-hmm. Maybe you are offering them a sense of community.
Maybe yes, but I can assure you that it always worked. Now, I don't know if it would work with today's generation, the post-pandemic generation. I have no idea. My friends tell me that they are simply impossible to deal with. So I cannot say anything about what's happening today or what may be happening. But as long as I was at school, the last years, this thing worked and it helped me a lot. It helped me, really.
All right. So what options do we have without authority? Stepping out of the pedestal. This is how we call it in Romanian.
Yes.
And yeah,
okay.
And delivering the rules and living them.
Sharing them.
Sharing.
Sharing the rules.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I sometimes would hear colleagues using dirty words in class against the pupils and so on. How do you expect them not to use the same words if you, teacher, use them?
Yeah. Thank you, Mary. I think we have covered everything that I had in mind before starting this talk, like the theory or the regulations, all the things that technically are explained on paper and they should be solved easily. Then the reality that's happening in schools in Italy and making a parallel with the ones in Romania. And discussing about how what role does the school play in the whole global picture of what's happening around the school, and what options do we have in the end? What options do we have? I would add to I also use the rules and I revisit them. Mm-hmm. By the way, the school year in Romania is divided into 5 modules. I let them know, I announce them the rules in the first module, at the beginning of the first module, and I revisit the rules at the beginning of each module. Yes. Depending on what happened in the previous module, there are things that we might change, we might reformulate, and I would say that with 1 or 2 exceptions, things are going all right. The exceptions come when we talk about students who have special educational needs, yes, who are not diagnosed and whose parents refuse to get involved, to be part of the support system of the child. But this is another story. Yes. This is another story. Yeah. Let's leave this meeting with a hopeful thought for the teacher, that person who has dedicated his or her life to this vocational job.
Yes, this vocation, it's a vocation, really.
Yeah. What is it that can spark the hope of a teacher who is stuck in this system? I mean, I got into the system, so it was hard for me to get in here. And maybe I don't have other options outside the system, so I'm somehow forced to stay in here. I do not resignate. I do not resign. Sorry, I do not resign, but I feel like I would do it the next day. What is that hopeful thought that you have for these teachers?
Well, my hopeful thought is this: we should not count too much on our authorities, or governments or reforms or paper and words and things like that. I think teachers should count a lot on themselves, their resources, because when we choose this vocation, which is a vocation, we need to look inside ourselves and find our resources, our small tricks and techniques to conquer these young people. Because young people need to be conquered, not tamed.
Not tamed.
Not tamed, not dominated. It's not a circus. It's not a zoo, even though sometimes it may sound like a zoo, okay? They need to be conquered with the right keeping the distance and getting near them. It's a very, very difficult balance to keep. But then who said that teaching is an easy job? It's not.
Yeah.
But it can be a great challenge, a wonderful adventure.
Okay, so I'm going to sum it up. Look inside. This is one hopeful thought. And if you look inside, you'll find that intuition, which can govern you, which can guide you so that you know when to get close to them, to the students, and when to keep a distance. I love this. I love this. Thank you, Mary. That was really helpful to me.
Thank you for involving me in so many interesting things, Carmen. You know, it always makes me happy. We're always both looking forward to seeing each other again.
Yeah, me too.
I hope you do come to Italy sometime. That would be really great. We should think of that.
By the way, it's planned. I'm going to come in July, but we'll talk about this.
Okay, that's great news. I'm really happy to hear that. Let me know so we can see what to organize and how to organize. Okay.
Sure. Hugs and kisses, Mary. Thank you.
And compliments for the great work you're doing.
Thank you.
I always follow you. Bye-bye, Carmen.
Bye-bye.